Hello, we're live. Very happy to be with you today with the second day of the Free Market Roadshow Bucharest. As you probably know, but I'll just tell you again, the Free Market Roadshow is an event that, in normal circumstances visits more than 35 cities across Europe, the Caucasus, and Israel. Due to the reasons we all know, we have to postpone that. Hopefully it will happen the second part of the year, but in the meantime, we are doing this series of live streams and webinars and all events all over the internet. And we're very happy to be partnering with the Ayn Rand Center Romania to do this 3-day event. Today we'll be talking about economics, and we have 3 of my favorite Free Market Roadshow speakers to do this. We will start with Henrique Schneider. I will tell you very briefly who Henrique is for those who don't know him. Henrique Schneider is the chief economist of the Swiss Federation of Small and Medium Enterprises. He also serves as a member of the Swiss Competition Commission, board member of the Swiss pension funds, and he also serves as a non-executive member of boards in Switzerland, Hong Kong, and South Korea. Online, you can find him at the GIS website, which is a magnificent opinion and news website at gisreportsonline.com. Henrique, today we'll be talking about how markets empower people, or putting the human in economics. He'll be giving a speech of 15 minutes or so, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. Henrique, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Federico, for introducing me. And thank you all at home or wherever you are watching this Free Market Roadshow online. Just one little reminder, if you look the background I'm in, you see a lot of wood. That's because I'm recording this from my home, and I live in a place in Appenzell where everything is built out of wood. So the whole house, including the roof and its fundament, are built out of wood. Wood surrounds us. But I am not here to talk about wood. In fact, I just told you everything I know about that material. I am here to talk about how market empowers individuals. Let me go back to an economist that has been badly understood, even corrupted by many of the people thinking and talking about him, which is Adam Smith. Adam Smith, in my point of view, is one of the most difficult person to read because the guy writes in a style that does not speak to us. And he loses himself in a lot of details that no one is interested in. But the message of Adam Smith is powerful. This is not the guy writing about the invisible hand of the market. In fact, if you go through his books, the invisible hand of the market is just a commentary that he makes in one of those excursions he does that are not very important to his argument. Adam Smith is about something else. Adam Smith has a fundamental egalitarian message. For him, the street porter and the philosopher are on the fundamental same level. And this is something that he's very adamant about. He writes this passage, the street porter and the philosopher, comes in all of his books. He believes that innovation does not come out of a laboratory. He believes that innovation is something that the worker does himself or herself. In his time, the example he takes is the pin maker and the watchmaker. He believes that these people working and thinking about pins, how to make pins, are the ones that are coming with a better solution on how to produce pins using less material and less energy. Adam Smith is also the guy that opposed slavery in a time that slavery was thought of as something natural. He opposed slavery because he clearly saw that individuals are used against their will, that there's an infringement on people's liberty. And all these messages are in his books, in The Wealth of Nations, which is the better known book, in the Theory of Moral Sentiments, and in the Theory of Jurisprudence, or Lectures on Jurisprudence, published after his death. Now, what does it mean the market empowers people? Let's look at the Adam Smith project as a whole. He thought that there are some fundamental moral constants. What does it mean? It was a time, don't forget, Newton was also living around that time, and Newton was finding out natural laws or law likeliness in natural phenomena. And Adam Smith thought, well, if Newton finds out law-like relationships in nature, we can find law-like relationships in morals. We just have to find a way of discovering them, the discovery of morality. And he thought the best way for discovering morality is to let people interact. Like the best way of finding out the laws of nature is to look at how nature develops, we find out morality, because morality is human nature, when we let people interact. Not when we tell them how to interact, but when we let them interact freely, but also taking responsibility over themselves and over the outcomes of their interactions. So Adam Smith was a big believer in letting people interact. And for letting people interact, you need the basic equality of everyone. You need to think that you are going to see each other on level eyes. And you need freedom to individually or in this exchange interact with each other. So the market exchange is, of course, an important exchange for Adam Smith, but as is the social exchange among friends, among families. For Adam Smith, very important, the freedom of association, because when we associate ourselves, and his example is always forming a merchants guild. The other example he takes is forming friendly societies. Which is societies where people go together to discuss politics and also help each other in case of need. He says, in these free interactions where people take account or are responsible for the outcomes, we will see the law of morality, is what he calls it. We will see the certain patterns of morality emerge. This is a strong claim, because if you take it as he put it, it's the claim that in exchanging, in engaging in markets, we will find morality. Why is it important? It's important in his time because in his time, everyone thought, or most people thought, the usual framework is that the God, the church, and the state is going to tell you what morality is. Of course, you can use markets a little bit, but nothing useful is coming out of markets and making money. And for Adam Smith, that was not the case. And today, everyone thinks that ethics and morality and whatever you want to call it gives the markets or gives the market rules or shows the markets the frontier, the margin of the markets. This is also not Adam Smith. Adam Smith is completely different. Is when we allow ourselves to meet together and exchange economic goods, we will find morality in the act of exchanging. Why? Because we consider each other's objectives, we consider each other's needs, we consider each other's likeliness or unlikeliness. So when I am selling you, I don't know, a mouse, for example, I am thinking, what do you want to do with that? I have to put myself in your shoes to find out what is the best design for the computer mouse. But that's not all. I also have to create a certain reputation so that you might trust me that I'm going to make a mouse that works, that functions. And if it doesn't function, you can come back at me and say, Henry, the mouse, you have to exchange it. So it's not only taking into consideration the utilitarian function of the mouse, but it's also taking into consideration the trust building exercise, because we will remain, even if it's for something unimportant, we will remain in exchange. The other thing, still under this umbrella of finding morality through markets, is for Adam Smith, everyone can exchange with everyone. You don't need to have the royal charter of the Queen telling you you are entitled to sell wheat. You don't need to be a gentleman in order to own capital. In that time, only gentlemen could own capital. People working, which were by definition at his time not gentlemen, everyone that worked was out of the gentlemanliness, could not engage in forming capital. And Adam Smith wants to tear down this artificial, he calls them artificial separations, or as we might put it today, regulatory separations. It was an empowering project, not only because we find the morality ourselves, but because everyone can participate in the markets in the fashion or in the way you consider more appropriate to you. And this is why, for example, Adam Smith thinks that self-interest is a good thing. You need self-interest. You need to be interested in yourself to find out what are you good at. You need to have certain self-interest in order to exchange with someone, and you need self-interest in order to find out what is the other's interest. Self-interest and the other interests are not symmetrical, but they are mirror images. That and especially that is an also moral claim, because he says everyone, not just the crown or the gentleman, but even the poorest widow's son. This is the example he uses, the widow's son. Um, People think that he's talking about bastards. Uh, 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 the poorest bastard, the outcast, can be a part of this exchange. Even the outcast, if guided by proper self interest, can find out what he or she is best at. Even the bastard can form capital. And that's the thing. Even the bastard can put himself in your shoes and find out what you want. This is a fundamentally empowering project that Adam Smith began. Unfortunately, that part has been forgotten. Adam Smith, as the first, one of the first economic thinkers, was a huge deal to everyone until the mathematization of economics began, which was at the end of the 19th century, so 1990 and so on, and especially after World War One in 1915, plus or minus, he was completely out of the picture. There were there were technical problems with his model, technical problems within economics, and because of these technical problems, economists started to leave him out of the loop or not to pay attention to what he was writing. But this is because economists thought that the guy was only an economist and, because of his mistakes, a bad economist. They forgot that the guy had a whole a whole social project in mind. They forgot that the market is just one, or economics is just one of the different venues or of the different parts of this project. It's interesting that one of the most technical economists living today, Vernon Smith, they are not related, it's just the same name. Huh? Vernon Smith, a Nobel Prize laureate, a person that has been trained in the most mathematical way economics can be done, a person that has won his Nobel Prize in the most mathematical way economics can reward, started, I think, 10 years ago, a project called Humanomics. Humanomics, according to him, is to put the human back at the center of the economy, and also at the center of economic science. And and Vernon Smith always goes back to Adam Smith because he says that is what we forgot nowadays when we are doing economics. We forgot that we are talking about people. We are not talking about equations. We are not talking about mathematics. We are not talking about vectors. We are talking about people, and we need to put the people back into the project of economics. And people putting the people back into the project of economics means also taking into account that economics is a fundamentally empowering moral and social project. With a grain of salt, I want now to make with this grain of salt, I would now to make an overshoot or an outlook because I know that we are here sponsored by the Ayn Rand Center. I am aware that Ayn Rand is completely different from Adam Smith. But in this idea of putting the human agent in the center of everything, they are quite similar. Of course, I'm no expert in objectivism, and please excuse me, please, the objectivist, excuse me if I make a mistake. But as I read Ayn Rand, it's about the empowered situation of the individual, the person that can take her destiny into her own hands and can go and go with it. Of course, Ayn Rand has a little less the social contact, but she seems to think, at least in my reading, if everyone does that, we will be fine, which is basically also what Adam Smith is saying. If everyone does it, we will be fine. And more than that, it's the idea that anyone can put her own talents into work and anyone can do some good for herself and for everyone else. And with this note, I would like to close and give it back to Federico. Thank you, Federico, for putting this together.
On the contrary, Enrique, thank you very much for your talk. I wanted to kickstart the Q&A session. We have a few minutes. I mean, you've said a lot of very interesting things. I'll just pick up of one of the latest you've mentioned before, we go quickly to LS question. But you mentioned about, putting the human back at the center of economics. You mentioned also the mathematization project, let's say, and I was thinking, what's your opinion about the use of models in social sciences, in economics, that I don't know how you consider it, either a social or not a social science. And do you think that the use of models and mathematization has reached a point in which is almost a fetish?
I like models. Also, I think that we cannot manage reality without thinking in models. Everything that we always need a model for everything. Even if I do, I don't know, mathematics, 1 + 1 = 2 is at the end a model. It's not the basic law of the universe, at least. So the mathematicians and philosophers tell me it's still not a settled issue why 1 + 1 = 2. And so it's not bad for us economists to use models. Think of the carpenter uses model. People doing banking use model. People even agricultures use models by how to put the agricultural stuff, how to grow it, how when to harvest, and so on. So models is always useful, but that's what they are. They are useful for another end. They are not ends per se. Models are important for us to get to know the thing, but knowing the models is not knowing the thing. The models is just how to get around to have a better, more systematic view, but they do not exhaust everything. Since we are talking about models, can I go back to the question that someone asked via Facebook, which is the trade balance, which is itself a model. The trade balance is, or balance of trade, is a model that says, okay, there is somewhere a ledger where you have the exports and another ledger where you have the imports. And then exports minus imports is net export. Nice. And most countries are interested in having positive net exports, so selling more up to abroad than importing. Okay. Adam Smith did not talk too much about that, but he believed in the liberalization of trade. He thought liberalizing trade, not only within a country, but especially international trade, leads to, to the creation of wealth. Why? Because it allows us to focus on what we do best and buy everything else. So liberalization of trade for him is a logical extension from what we do in our lives. I, for example, even living in this wooden home, I did not build it because I'm very bad in building homes. I am moderately okay as an economist. I am bad in building homes. So I focus on being an economist, make a surplus out of that, and then pay someone to build a home. And that's the same thing that the free trade discussion, or Adam Smith especially, thinks. You will focus on what you do best. You will have a surplus out of that, and then you will buy stuff that you need outside your home and outside your country. Right now, a lot of people are saying, "Well, we need to deglobalize. We're too globalized, and COVID shows us that too much globalization is bad." The answer is, are you crazy? Are you really crazy? After people suffering so much, you want to make them suffer again, but not by not having access to markets and not having access to goods? Or imagine that a guy somewhere in a country where we are not, let's say, imagine that a guy in Argentina comes up with the antidote to COVID. Are we really going to say we don't buy it because it's not in our country? Is it very bad? Is it so bad just because it comes from outside? Of course not. It is crazy to think that anything from outside is bad and we should privilege inside. We should privilege whoever is more productive. If we have a productive agriculture, we privilege it automatically by the market exchange. If we have an unproductive, I don't know, carpentry sector, then we should not privilege it. We should go there where they have productive carpenters. I don't know, maybe Serbia, maybe China, maybe Switzerland. I have no idea. But that's the idea of free trade, is finding out where is productivity. And finding out where is productivity is, again, an empowering process, because it shows us that we have to focus on what we can do well, and we can rely on the others to supply us what we do not have. Or a short answer is, closing borders right now is the craziest thing we can do. Closing borders right now is prolonging all the COVID suffering.
We have 2 minutes, and I have a quick question for you, and I'll ask you for a short answer because we have very little time. There's an author I follow that says that, if you want to get rich, what you should find out is how you can help the most people, and that will make you immensely rich. Is this a good way to describe what you mentioned about this equalization between self-interest and the interest of the other people, what happens in the market?
Atlas shrugged. They find out the technological way of making the train better and more safe and quicker. And then everyone says, no, no, it's not going to work, and we don't want you to use that. But they found out that way because they want to do something better for themselves. They want to make the company stronger and drive more profits. But in the process of developing the safer train, the better technology, the more energy and material efficient way, they were making the whole world better, their customers, and even the more expanded amount of stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Enrique. Thanks to everyone who has joined us via Facebook. Please come back in 15 minutes. We'll have Anders Ichtet talking about mobility, which is a very important topic considering that most of us are mandatorily quarantined. So it's great to talk about mobility, and particularly when we'll get it back. Thanks again, Enrique, for your presence. It was great having you.
Thank you.
And see you all soon.